Welcome everybody to Whiskey Wednesdays. Cheers. Dave, how we doing?
I'm doing good. Just got my pour done and ready to get started with everyone for another Wednesday. It's hard to believe how fast these weeks fly. I feel like we were just sitting here doing this yesterday.
I know. What'd you just say? You got your what done?
My whiskey poured.
Oh, your pour.
My bourbon poured. My pour done.
I started before the webinar.
Yeah, I was scrambling. I just ran out of a meeting and dialed in. That's why my camera's off angle right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're good. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. For those who haven't attended, this is pretty informal, as you can see. I got my giant bottle of Jack Daniels, got a free shirt with it. It's such a huge bottle.
I was just going to say, did you coordinate that? You're drinking your outfit today.
Right? I mean, I was like, oh, I saw this shirt this morning in my closet, and I'm like, oh, I got to wear that for Whiskey Wednesday. I'm like, oh, I got Gentleman's Jack. Perfect. So anyway, yeah, actually, I like to do a little bit of fun facts behind the whiskey, or Dave and I have been. There's not a whole lot on Gentleman's Jack. The only thing is I was Jack Daniels last week, and kind of interesting, that dude was only 5'2" and apparently had 7 lovers, and that's the 7 on front of the bottles of Jack. But the Gentleman's Jack was the first unique product that they launched in over 100 years. So they were sticking to the core of just Jack Daniels, and it's double charcoal filtered, and so that's what makes it more smooth and sweet as compared to the regular Jack that I was drinking last week, which was pretty rough. I normally don't drink that stuff straight. So anyway, that's mine. What you got over there, Dave?
I was going to say, I have a story about your Gentleman's Jack. That used to be the drink you used to always make us do a shot of when we were starting C2P. I feel like that was always your go-to, was let's do a shot of Gentleman's Jack. So I've got a bottle of Jefferson Reserve, very old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, very small batch tonight. So I'm sticking on the trying to stay fancy with my bourbons here, and looking forward to it. I don't have any good stories. I'm sure there's a tag that has a picture of Thomas Jefferson, so I could probably make something up that Thomas Jefferson brewed this ridiculously small batch, but I don't know if there's any truth to that or not, but it sounds like a good story.
Nice. Well, what are we going to talk about? So today, some of the things we were thinking about talking about was just giving some updates on some of the content and intellectual property kind of that we've created, just stuff that might benefit you guys as advisors. And then some of the tech developments in regards to things to make life easier when you're doing virtual marketing and virtual sales process, sharing some of our wins, some of our challenges, kind of what's developed there. And then also marketing. So we'll talk about marketing, same thing, kind of what's working, what's not working. I'm going to need a little bit more whiskey this week because I had a rough week when it comes to marketing, and I'll share that with you of some of our experiences with the JL Smith Group. So that's kind of what's on the docket. But before we get into all that stuff, let's see what Rob's up to. What do you got, Dave?
Before we do that, I had to share.
Yep, that's super cool though. Whiskey Wednesday, it's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. Love it.
That came from Jennifer Mackert.
That's probably going to take like 6 weeks based on delivery. I mean, everything seems like it's taken forever, right? I'm sure everybody's experiencing that. But that's a super cool shirt. I gotta get that. Hey, so Rob, you gonna join us here? And I guess we can take that screen share down so we can show Rob. So Rob, our celebrity bartender, can't hear you, Rob. You're on mute or something.
No, I'm muted now.
Perfect, perfect. But Rob, love it. Love the innovation. We can see the drink being made while we see your beautiful face with your fedora and like the coat. I'm feeling a little underdressed in the t-shirt and hat with you guys, but
Well, I do have the t-shirt going on. So this is pretty reminiscent of what, as a designer, I like to do.
nice. Very cool.
Welcome, everybody.
And I just finished a client meeting. That's why I have the jacket on. I had to make it look classy.
Perfect. First question, did anybody make the drink that we came up with last week? Anyone download the recipe, make that? Not, no worries. Today, we're making what's called the New York Sour. It uses a little bit of bourbon, wine, simple syrup, and lemon juice. And I'm going to make it for you right now. So,
Nice.
Any questions, Dave, Jason?
No, don't put your finger.
So we're starting with ice as usual. Sometimes this one, remember last week I said that if it doesn't have fruit juice, you want to stir it. Since this one does have fruit juice, we are going to shake it. We are using Old Granddad today, 114 proof. A little stronger than your average bourbon.
Nice.
And then we're doing an ounce of, sorry, it's my first time doing stuff on screen like this. Ounce of lemon juice.
What's everybody else drinking out there too? Let's get some feedback while Rob's making his drink.
Yeah, we got Fatty, of course, Avon Bushmill 16 Irish single malt.
Nice.
Just for Jason, he said. Normally I drink Scottish single malt, but he's drinking some Irish for you.
Nice.
A couple other things we got, Jason, coming in the comments as Rob's mixing us up is Richard James put great webinar today. Joe Bellello says, seems Jason's bottle has an evaporation problem. So you might want to get that fixed, Jason. It's evaporating quickly. And then Mike Pika is drinking JMO, obviously. John Dodd, once again, drinking Crown Royal. Joe Bellello has his James Bond Vesper Martini. Carol said it's 2:30 in the afternoon here, so she's settling for tea right now. So probably a smart lifestyle choice there. And David is Colcagen, New Mexico. A little harsh, so I drink it slower. Woody's got the Knob Creek going on. So, Rob, what do you got going for us right now?
This is the whiskey, or the New York Sour. It's a play off of the Manhattan a bit, but instead of the vermouth, we're actually using a little bit of red wine. Stay away from the big dry red wines. You want more of a nice even bodied. We had some Pinot Noir left over from the night before. The key to the float is you want to pour it slowly over your spoon. And this kind of distributes it nicely rather than just pouring it straight on. And then you get this nice little float and a little bit of gradation in there. So you can stir it, or if you want to have a little bit of wine forward cocktail, you can do it that way, straight up. So salute everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Salute.
Cheers. Thank you, Rob. Awesome.
Whiskey Wednesday.
Absolutely. Awesome job. And that looks good. Looking forward. Rob, do we have the recipe again that everyone can download?
Yep. The recipe's in the handouts already on your right side of the screen, and we're probably going to post it online too. So, yeah.
And Rob, Mary Stirk said you're wearing an awesome hat. So.
It's going to be my new, quintessential hat when I mix drinks for you all.
Nice. Well, we got a couple things. John Dowd sent in a message, said, thanks to you folks, I've qualified for my PPP. So awesome to continue to hear people are getting support. I know a lot of us, Jason has, I have, we did at C2P also, and great relief efforts. We sent out an announcement today. The Senate passed another $310 billion. It's going to the House and then to the president. I've heard rumblings that, the House may even come in over the weekend. Sorry to inconvenience them to work over the weekend, but to potentially pass this. And so if you haven't got it yet, make sure you're working with your banker and getting everything coordinated, because if you missed out on the first wave, this second wave is going to be something that'll tremendously help. So just wanted to make that quick announcement, and great to hear, John.
Good stuff. Thanks, Dave. Let's talk about tech first, right? Just because I'm kind of getting used to this. As I'm sitting here, actually, I'm not really getting used to it. It's kind of weird. I have this ring light in my face right now. And so I ordered one of these. Dave, you inspired me because honestly, a lot of times you have a lot of shadow, you do right now, on your face, and it's kind of like you look kind of scary, like a skeleton with a beard. Just kidding. But I honestly did notice mostly on you a lot of times in these like shadows, and then so we were talking about it at JL Smith Group and like getting the lighting, and I was using a lamp, and I was putting it behind my laptop and kind of sitting forward and using a lamp, and we were in a weekly meeting at JL Smith Group, and Brian Bibbo and Jeff Horncan and a group of us. And Brian was like, we need to all get ring lights. And it was a great idea. So we ordered them all. And it looked like the delivery time was like several weeks or something. And so Rob, who's our integrator guy running our office right now, running operations, he actually went on eBay and he got them delivered in less than a week. And so that was pretty cool because they're new, they're unopened in the box, but they're used. They're like new used, whatever that is, right? But the ring light was.
It means that means they're stolen off the back of a truck, I think.
Right. Here, I'm going to turn this ring light off just to show the difference of this. Where is it? There. Look at that difference.
Yeah, you're still ugly.
So anyway,
but you definitely need to turn that back on.
This is a good investment. I think that's something for everybody to check out, lighting wise. And I also noticed
I ordered one about 5 weeks ago because I noticed the same thing in my videos, Jason, and it's like on a 5-week back order on Amazon. It's going to be here in May. So that's an awesome tip. You told me about that today, to be able to go to eBay. Don't go to Amazon because there's a long line.
The other thing I noticed is like I record these 5 minutes, videos, keeping them under 5 minutes for the advisors each Monday, just to give kind of updates or what's going on type of thing. Like I mentioned before, I may stop doing those because we're doing these Whiskey Wednesdays now. But I did it right after I worked out this week in Marblehead, and I had my iPhone, and it was like kind of sitting down on the ground, and I was looking down at it, and I was like, man, it's like, it's just not a good view when you're looking down at the phone like that. So anyway, the ring light's just good in general, lighten up your face. What else? What else tech-wise, Dave? We've been going back and forth with OneNote and versus Adobe and testing those things out. And I had a meeting with Mike Wallace. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to share, so, a lot of the recordings that I've done, when I've been doing virtual meetings over the last couple of years, I've just been opening the PDF documents and like sketching over the bucket plan on Adobe. And if you've gone through the virtual trainings, that's how I've recorded it, just because that's how I was doing it. But then if I was doing like a whiteboard sketch of something, I would go to OneNote, because OneNote is a lot easier to write and draw and sketch in. And then Jason, actually, him and I, we were talking the other day, and he was like, well, I'm having a little bit of a challenge going back and forth between OneNote and Adobe when I'm meeting with clients and prospects now. He was like, why don't you just do everything in OneNote? And I was like, I don't know. I never really thought about it. I never really have tried it. And he was like, yeah, I think you can kind of put the documents into there. And so this morning at like 6:30 a.m., I got up and I started building the bucket plan documents in OneNote. And actually, I just did a step 2 meeting with a client and had everything built into OneNote. I'll share my I'll share my screen so you can see this really quickly if you're not familiar with OneNote. But, you know, ultimately what we built is all of the documents. So step one, discover. And again, this is the 4-step holistic planning process. But
Hey,
I
Dave,
have the 4, yep.
isn't OneNote part of Microsoft Office too, or
It
somehow or
is.
something? Okay, all right.
It is part of Office, and it's cool because when you set up an account, it automatically syncs to the cloud. So I could have OneNote on my tablet, my computer, and my iPhone. And if I draw something here, it instantly comes over to my iPhone and my backup, or your administrative team member can have it. And so long story short, I took all of the documents. So here was Mike Krams from when I did my first meeting with him, the deliverables. His planning fee was $19.95. His concerns and priorities worksheet that we mapped out. I showed him a visual of the requested documents. So then, you know, we just did step 2 today. And in step 2, we started with the 4-step process. I showed him the agenda, which again, you can write right over and draw on. We didn't do the income gap assessment because he's only 50 and he's probably going to work till he dies because he's like a serial entrepreneur. But we went through the bucket plan or the pyramid of risk. I was circling, drawing, showing concepts to him here. We just finished mapping out his bucket plan. 1.34 million, you can see, is now, soon, and later bucket. He's an entrepreneur. He's got 4 pretty big businesses. So he wanted all those businesses in the later bucket, even though they're not investable assets. And, you know, normally we teach it as investable assets. Like, he was adamant they had to be in there. So I wrote the names of them if you're wondering why they're like that.
I've run into that. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this one business that, yeah, it might be, they're looking for seed money. It could have $100 million valuation. He's like, that has to be in my bucket plan. So anyway, it's all, you know, built out in here. Here's his volatility tolerance analysis. So to Jason's point, what he wanted was the ability to scroll through really easily, draw in here. But then what I could also do is I can zoom out and then zoom in right over here. And I could do something, you know, like the order of money and still sketch. And I still have all my tools right in here, but you can see how easy it is all inside of one application. So this was a huge innovation. I have to, I guess, thank Jason because I get comfortable with technology. And so I was like, well, why would I do that? I'm using it and it's not broken. But I just found it to be even more efficient in my meeting. And so I'm going to record a training for everyone on how to do this and make it available early next week. So I think it's a great innovation, and I just wanted to share that from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, well, and thank you for figuring out how to use it so you can now do a little video tutorial, which I think you already did to teach me how to use it. So
yeah,
appreciate it.
I mean, I put everything, like, you know, the different way to invest. I got tax management journey stuff all ready to go. We went to the funnels. He was like all about the funnels. So it was so fluid and seamless.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Switching gears real quick here for a moment to another piece of technology, and I'll talk about this a little bit more. Actually, I'll just jump into it now. But I sat in on a first appointment. So I'm in transition, and I think I've told you guys this or others that I'm not going to be the lead advisor to take somebody through the whole planning process. I'm just going to really be developing business, bringing it to the lead advisor, sitting in on step 1, helping close that first like engagement of agreeing to a planning fee and going through the process, and then I'm done. And so I brought 2 different cases. One was my functional medicine doctor. The other one was, which is like my health coach I meet with like every 10 days. And then the other one was a neighbor of mine out at my lake house. That's makes over $1 million a year, high net worth, 49-year-old. And so I sat in on a first appointment using all the tools Dave's been teaching, all the technology, the software, everything. I sat on a first appointment with Chad, and I sat on a first appointment with Brian. And some of the things I learned in watching them and was able to kind of give them pointers on. So one was like Brian was on speakerphone, and I think you just have a tendency when you're on speakerphone to yell. And he was like yelling, right? And there was almost like an echo. It was poor sound quality. And, you know, Dave, you're on AirPods right now. I have a Yeti like super close to me right now. And so, you know, one of these speakers you make fun of, right? Or whatever, microphones. And so the sound quality is really good. His sound quality was not that good. And so the intimacy I think you create by having good sound quality is super important. So that was one of the things I was able to share with him, and he ordered some AirPods. The other was on his, so Brian and I and the clients were all on a Ring Central. And I had the settings set up. There's a box you can check in the software where if I talk, the screen like blows up or puts like a circle around me and makes my screen bigger. Brian didn't have that setting, right? And so what was happening was Brian's screen wasn't showing big on the screen when he would talk, but mine was. And it just made it weird and almost awkward for the meeting. And this, I saw the same thing. Jeff Wernken had his set that way. Brian didn't. And they were presenting in the AFIA workshop. And the same thing happened when Jeff the whole time, his screen was blown up while Brian's was small, even when Brian was talking. So you really got to pay attention to those settings.
Yeah. And hey, Jason, a couple questions have come in. That's phenomenal advice. It's so true. I mean, that's the importance of role playing with somebody else. And we've made the offer. Our business development team will do it with you. Test audio, test visual, test hand movements, gestures, everything, lighting. But Carol asked, is there a specific brand model for the ring light? And I'm guessing you don't have it memorized. So what we'll do is we'll email it out to everyone.
Yeah, I have it in front of me. I mean, it's got KSHIOE. I mean, I'll just look. I mean, let me look at the back of this thing.
Yeah. But I wanted to add something, Jason, while you're doing that. And this is, I feel like, has been a lifesaver for me this week. I have one of these AT&T Wi-Fi hotspots, and I said this in the training, but this week it came to fruition 3 times. This is a Wi-Fi hotspot, and I found that in the middle of important meetings, my home Wi-Fi has been going down. And this automatically flips on. And I have had 2 big client meetings where if I didn't have this, I would have just had to end the client meeting, which would have totally sucked. And then during my webinar this week, I had, let me see my numbers. I had 48 people register, and I had 25 people attend. And my Wi-Fi slowed down right during the webinar. And this was actually faster than my home Wi-Fi. So I was able to switch to this. These are so important to have, because even tonight, my last meeting I just had, I would not have been able to do it if I did not have this.
Well, especially where you're at, Dave, because Avon Lake has always had really bad, like historically bad Wi-Fi, you know, and cell connection. So I think it's like depending on where you're at and how reliable your internet is. Yeah.
It's funny because my client I was doing the first meeting with when it went down, he's in the Bay Area, and he was like, "Oh, why is your Wi-Fi so bad?" And I'm like, "Well, because I don't have Google and Apple right down the street. Like you guys have the most powerful Wi-Fi in the universe, you know." And so we don't have a lot of that in my area. So having this is really important.
So a couple other things that I learned from that meeting with Brian and Chad both. The other thing I saw was they were leaving the screen share up too long, and you weren't able to see their faces enough. And so they were leaving like the agenda and the different tools, the bucket plan, different things. They would just leave it up there, and then they would keep talking. And you got to be very purposeful of like stop, show it just for a moment of when you need it, but then stop, because it's so important for them to see your face and you to see their face.
Yeah, and I mean, just to give some kind of data around that, my last meeting, again, it just ended. It was an hour-long meeting. I probably had the screen share up for 10 to 15 minutes of that hour. The rest of the time was the two of us looking into each other's eyes and communicating and building that connection and rapport. Because the reality of it is, like, yeah, they love the bucket plan. It helps them simplify things. They love the pyramid of risk, but they're hiring you. And so you can't lose sight of that in a virtual environment.
And I think the other little thing that I try to be conscious of, but I think every little thing makes a difference, is as much as I can, I try to look right into the middle of the camera, right? When I'm talking to people, because the tendency is to look at them on the screen, depending on wherever your screen is, versus like if you're talking to them, you got to pretend they are right inside of that camera lens, because you want them to, like, you know what I mean? Have that.
You know what I started doing, Jason? I don't know if this is the right way or the wrong way to do it. It kind of stinks. I put the camera right in front of their face on my computer screen, and that way I have to stare at the camera. Now, I can't see their whole face. It's a big screen, though, so I can see enough of it, but it forces me to look at the camera instead of off to the side or somewhere else into outer space.
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out, because like the ring light is right here, and then you know, well, actually, what's nice about the ring light is that actually the camera's right in the middle of it. But then when I look at the screen to look at you, Dave, that's where you see me looking down, you know? Yep.
Yeah. A couple questions came in. Is there a difference between regular AirPods and Pro? No, if you get Pro, you're just better. I got the ones before the Pros came out, or else I'd have the Pros. I don't know the difference. I'm sure there is one. Probably battery life.
It's mainly the fit in your ear, because I've lost 2 regular AirPods, because that's just me. So I'm on a Pro now. I haven't lost my Pros so far, but the Pros have this little end on the end of them, if you can see it, which makes it fit in your ear better. That's probably the biggest. Yeah.
I'm about to buy a second set because my battery dies in them, so I have to constantly recharge them. And then another question came in: can we get a copy of a recording of Dave's webinars? Yeah, anyone can go. I've done 2 of them so far. I'll share some data later, but they're on my website. On my website, there's a resources tab, and you could click on webinars. And those are a lead magnet now. Even though they're recorded, they're on my webinar, and it does a lead capture. So you'll have to put in your info, and you'll probably get called by my wife. Hopefully you sign up with us, and we'll give you a discount on your planning fee. But those are all available. You can go watch the recordings of them.
Any other questions?
Nope.
The only
Mike Mackey gave a good bit of advice. The Pros fit better, and they also stay and have noise cancellation. So there you go.
Yeah, noise cancellation's a game changer. Absolutely, especially if you have 4 little monsters running around the house, or 2.
Cool. So Jason, enough of the technology. Let's jump over to marketing. What do you got going on at the JL Smith Group?
I got a perfect bridge of technology to marketing. So we did the whole Safe from the Storm campaign exactly the way it's outlined that everybody has. Like literally followed the sequence exactly. We got 70 people registered for Monday night for a Safe from the. Actually, I think it was more than that. I don't know the exact numbers in front of me, but it was at least 70 a couple days before. And I got on the webinar Monday night, and it was supposed to start at 6, and then it's 6:02, and it's 6:04, and then it's 6:11, and I'm firing off texts, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And the platform, Big Marker, like crashed, literally wouldn't start. Like technology totally didn't work whatsoever. So we had to pivot quickly and sent an email out to everybody who was registered. It was like 2/3 clients and 1/3 new prospects. and we sent an email out due to overwhelming demand, or due to, Big Marker said they could host X amount of people, whatever it was. Apparently that's not the case because we crashed the software. And so we are moving to a new platform and rescheduling it for Wednesday night. And actually right now, or a minute ago, 6 o'clock, was the start of our reschedule. So we rescheduled and we pivoted to Webinar Jam. So it was Big Marker at first, and it totally crashed. It wasn't like we had 1,000 people on there. I don't know what their capacity is, but it sounded good, at least when we sent the email out that we crashed it. And so we switched to Webinar Jam, rescheduled it, and it just started 2 minutes ago. Of Brian and Jeff doing the Safe from the Storm webinar.
How many people are on it? You probably don't know how many people are on it tonight, huh?
No, but I will share next Wednesday. I'll tell you what, yesterday I was on a webinar that Jeannette Bajalia did with Ed Slott, and she had 140 people on the webinar. And by the end of the webinar, she booked 28 appointments, according to Ed Slott. I actually just got off a call with Ed Slott. So after I saw him do that with Jeannette, I'm like, I got to do that, right? I'm an Ed Slott Elite IRA advisor. I got to do that for JL Smith Group. That was brilliant. Thank you, Jeannette. And so I reached out to Ed. I texted him last night, got on a call with him today. We're going to do one as well for our office. And we're going to build a whole process around it, taking the best practices of what Jeannette did. Yeah.
She said she's booked 38 appointments so far.
Wow. That's awesome. Because it was like 25 or 28 by the end of the webinar or something, I believe. So probably even more. That's fantastic. So I had a call with them today. We're gonna do it at JL Smith Group, but then we're gonna stick our instructional design team on it. We're gonna extract the best practices out of what Jeannette did, as well as what we'll do to run it, build it into a process for any of you that are Ed Slott advisors or that want to become Ed Slott advisors. Because I'll tell you what, it's $8,000 a year, but for $8,000 a year, you have the ability to leverage Ed's name and use this process. It's something you might want to think about. Now, I know he's going to charge a fee to get on the webinars as well, but even still, I'm excited about the future of that. But we should probably talk about the real results. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to take another drink when I talk about the marketing that we did this week.
And Jeannette said they're still getting requests for 30-minute visits. So I'm sure it'll be a lot more than 38. You know, Jason, that's the one thing I found about these webinars. It's really cool. So I did my webinar on Monday, and just in the last hour since we've been on this call, I've had 2 more meetings booked from that webinar. And so I think some people are watching it on their own time and their own convenience, especially when you have a system like Webinar Jam that makes the replay available and then a follow-up nurture sequence afterwards to make them offers. We just had 2 more booked. The one today is a retiree in San Francisco. She wants help with a Roth IRA conversion. She put it in her 20-minute fit call registration on Calendly. And so I was super discouraged after the initial webinar because I only got a couple instant appointments, but I've been finding the good ones are booking a few days afterwards.
Ah, that's really good. Yeah. Yeah, I remember talking to you right after you did it. We were on a call and you were kind of bummed, like,
Yeah, and even my one on Monday, I had like 25 people, and I was like, how did I only set 2 appointments from 25 people? But now, they keep trickling in. So I'll share a couple things that I think you guys could use also when we get to that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So should I share my failures first, or our failures before we get to the positive?
Yeah, I got a couple of those to talk about too. So.
You can pull us out of the gutter, Dave, me out of the gutter. So I sat in yesterday on the AFIA. Well, first of all, last week we did a White Glove workshop, We had 40 people registered, 19 people showed up, 1 appointment booked out of the 19. So Jeff and Brian did that. That was on taxes and retirement. Now I will say that I've heard others having a lot better success. It may be just us having a learning curve right now, right? Because I did notice like the open, the close, kind of just a call to action was not weaved in throughout the presentation, which I think is super important. Let them know up front what's going to happen at the end, plug it throughout, and then close with it again. And I know we didn't do that. You know, our office was not doing that. So we're going to get better at that. But from 40 people registered at 99 bucks a hit, 19 people attended. The good part in only 1 appointment booked so far. Now, the good part of it is all those 40 people, we have all their information to continue to market to them, to call them. You know, we captured all that information. So that's a good thing. But from a results standpoint, going over, now that one I was not able to be on. Personally, I wasn't able to see that presentation. But I was able to see the AFIA Social Security presentation and the taxes and retirement. AFIA was yesterday, taxes and retirement was today. And I'm going to give you guys some tips based on mistakes that we made. So one of the things was on the AFIA presentation, they're using Click as their platform. And that's the tough part. You got Webinar Jam, you got Big Marker that, Webinar Jam, is Dave, you've been using, a lot of people like that. Big Marker is what White Glove's using. AFIA is using Click, and there's others out there as well. But with the AFIA with Click, I noticed, and I don't know if it was us or AFIA, but when I went into the meeting room waiting for Brian and Jeff to start the meeting, they had their names and it had a box where their pictures could go, and there was no pictures in the box. So don't make that mistake, right? Get the pictures uploaded into the, into the portal or whatever it is. The other thing is I noticed that, and I referenced this before, the whole time Jeff's screen was blown up, Brian's was small, even when Brian was talking. And that was kind of weird and awkward. So there's a setting that you can fix that. The other thing that you don't want to make is the chat box was showing all the comments of everyone. So everybody that was on there, you could see all the miscellaneous comments you don't want them to see. And there's a setting you can flip it to, which we changed it and fixed it for today at taxes and retirement, where they can't see all that banter back and forth. Because I even noticed myself, I was watching all the tax in the chat box and not listening to Brian and Jeff presenting. So you got to turn that off. The other thing that I know you have the capability of doing is turning off the seeing the attendees. Like we only had 7 people show up for the AFIA workshop for Social Security. I mean, that's not like an overwhelming like big room of people, right? Like I'd rather people not know that there were only 7 people on the webinar. Well, that's a setting. But we had the setting on, or AFIA did, where you could see all 7 people that were in that meeting, and everybody could see it. So make sure you get that setting correctly set up. And even today in taxes and retirement, we switched it over to where only the moderator could pick what questions or whatever showed up. But we only showed 1 question, right? And it was Rob moderating, but there were several other questions, but he only picked 1 to highlight. Well, what about all those other people that had questions? They're probably like, why didn't you put my question up there, right? So don't put either, I would suggest don't put any up there. If somebody has a question, just say it out loud, but don't show it, because don't pick and choose, because the people you don't choose feel left out. Or at least that's how I would feel. I think if you're doing dual presentation, Brian and Jeff, it's like they didn't, they waited too long of one talking versus the other. And it was a little awkward. And this is another tip. If you have two people presenting, let them know up front that, hey, we're going to be dual presenting and I'm going to present the first half. And like Brian, for example, he opened it up and Jeff was the co-presenter. He didn't let everybody know that Brian was presenting the first half. Jeff didn't talk to 34 minutes into the presentation, but yet his screen is the one that's showing, right? Like big, and Brian's is small, if you can imagine. And so he didn't let them know that, hey, I'm going to do the first half, Jeff's going to do the second half. So tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell it to them, and then tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them at the end. So having that upfront, it's almost like, Dave, what we teach in the planning process, the upfront agreement, right? Or the upfront contract. Tell them how long it's going to be. Tell them who's going to be presenting. Tell them in general, either you're going to go back and forth or you're going to present half and the other person's going to present half, but don't leave it ambiguous, I guess is the word, right? Don't leave it like where they don't know what's going on. So I think you should set that up front. And the other thing, I know I'm going on and on, Dave. Did you want to say something?
Keep talking about how much you suck.
Oh, God.
I'm kidding.
Painful.
No, these are, you know what? It's so good. Like I've ran into this same stuff myself, and I'm sitting here in my mind, like so dead on what you're sharing with everyone. These are, if I would have paid a lot of money for somebody to tell me what you're telling everyone 2 weeks ago, because you and I should have coordinated even. I made all these same mistakes. So this is amazing, like that you're sharing all of this.
And I only have a couple more things, but because I feel like I'm taking up too much time, but someone should be welcoming people as they come in, right? Like in the chat box, when people come in, like, or if they have questions, address them right away. Like at first on Social Security yesterday, nobody was. And then I texted Rob being like, answer those questions. Welcome the people that are coming in, let them know. And he started doing that, and he started getting great engagement from them, which was great because there's more likelihood those people are going to turn into appointments. The other thing is that at the end of the webinar, it was like Jeff didn't know how to turn off his calendar or end the meeting, or I don't know if it was Afia or Rob or Jeff or who it was, but it was like a really uncomfortable, like 10 or 15 seconds that Jeff's like, it kind of awkwardly smiling, can't figure out how to turn the camera off. Figure that shit out up front, because that's a weird, kind of feeling. I know I felt, it for Jeff. The other thing I had written down here was Brian was referring to everybody as viewers. And I think we can all think about a way to maybe get better at that. We might want to call them, all of our friends online, or we might want to call it all of our, what else did I have? I don't know, something, not viewers though, maybe friends online, or maybe learner students, right? If you're doing a FIA, maybe you should call them students. But I think there's a little bit of strategy. I think friends online. Let's talk about all our friends, to all you friends online. We didn't have the Calendly, Dave, or whatever that was set up where you can book appointments. I don't know why we didn't, but we didn't. And I think that's a mistake. I think as you're going throughout, as I mentioned before, you should be plugging right up front that strategy session or that right fit call or whatever it is, and all throughout, and you should give them the capability to book that appointment right there.
Can I touch on that, Jason, for a minute?
Yes, please.
Because it's interesting. I just got another notification. So while we've been on this Whiskey Wednesday, my third nurturing email went out to my people who registered. And actually, I just got a third appointment now that a client wants help allocating all of their money. And it's that third nurturing sequence to the fit call. But I just want to share something, and I have to give 100% credit to Reno. Reno showed this to me. But when I did my first webinar, I made all the same mistakes that Jason's talking about. And I had no call to action until the end of the webinar. And I'm long-winded, so I went like an hour because I thought everyone loves as much, detail on finances and taxes as I do. And so Reno was like, first of all, you can't go more than 45 minutes. Second of all, you have to give the offer up front, because the whole time they're sitting there, they're thinking about what's he trying to sell us. And then my wife was like, people are also sitting on this webinar like, holy smokes, how much does this guy cost? Because, they maybe see accolades or success or whatever else. And so as you can see, like, here's my slideshow that I did just to update it. And I only want to focus on the left-hand side. I gave, my background, my experience, our philosophy, why do it yourself when we can bring all the pieces of the financial puzzle together. Then I decided to say, today's webinar is focused on tax planning, but we specialize in retirement planning, and we have a process we call the bucket plan. And so we're willing to give any attendee a free copy of our book. And I made a joke that said, my wife will Lysol it out before we mail it to you. And she's been going to the post office every day mailing these bucket plan books out right now. So that was my first call to action. But then I said, you might be skeptical or saying, how does this apply to me? And so we're offering a 20-minute strategy call where we get to learn about you, you get to learn about us. We'll talk about these strategies and how they fit for you and determine if it's a fit to move forward. So let's talk about the webinar today. Then I jumped into the webinar. And then at the end, I used, the same stuff. I said, so I concluded the webinar. I said, okay, what's the next steps? You remember that 20-minute consultation. And then in Webinar Jam, I can push out an offer right in front of all their screens where they can click right onto my calendar and Calendly. And inside of the webinar, they could book their appointment. But then I also say, if you don't want to book it today, if you need a night to sleep on it, here's where you can go right on my website to book your meeting. And so it shows exactly where they get started. So there's no ambiguity to it. And then in all of the nurturing sequences, it just says, hey, P.S., don't forget to book your meeting. Let's forget this webinar. Don't worry about this stuff. Let's just talk about how we can help you. And the other thing that I failed on in this webinar, Jason, is somebody asked me a question and I allowed it to derail my presentation a little bit towards the end. And to be honest, it was a client who probably had no money. And he was like, none of these tax stuff is going to impact my retirement. I basically live on an RMD. And I was like, yeah, but other people, blah, blah, blah. And I should have been like, you know what? This is generic advice. That's why we offer the complimentary consultation. For some people, taxes won't impact your retirement at all. But I got almost trying to answer the question in a defensive way. And I would highly recommend don't let the questions derail you. Simply diffuse them and move on. And so I would say a couple of those things are really good, things that I've learned over the webinar process to help improve success. Good. Well, we are. We do. I thought we were going to run short. So a lot of good stuff. Let's see. We do have a couple questions we will open up. Joe said this stuff is so valuable. I'm glad to hear. Fatty said, Jason, Afia, do they allow you to book on the spot? Do you know?
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's the thing, Fatty. Good point. We'll give an update on that next week. Somebody remind me to make sure I have the answer to that next week.
Yeah. And so I just want to share too. I mean, I had my last webinar that I talked about, it was on Monday, the 20th. I had 48 people register. 32 leads were from Facebook. It ended up costing me about $19 to $20 a registration. Of the 32 leads on Facebook, 16 actually attended. I booked 2 appointments and sent out 3 bucket plan books. I have booked now 3 more appointments since this call today. So I'm up to 5 appointments there. 16 of my existing prospects from my database also attended. registered, I'm sorry. 9 of them attended. And what's cool is what I'm seeing, I just did my second webinar, and 4 people from my first webinar who didn't book an appointment attended my second webinar. So you also have to think about the momentum that you're building here with these, because I only had 7 people attend my first one, but 4 of those 7 attended my second one also. So I'm building FaceTime and credibility with them. Yeah. And what I'm also finding is my prospects in the pipeline, the gentleman that I just met with before this call, who you saw his bucket plan, 1.4 million of investable assets, he's attended both webinars. And when I got in my virtual meeting with him, he was like, just tell me how we map out our bucket plan and what we need to do to get my money from Fidelity to you. You know, and like, you got to use these webinars and broaden, how you're using them.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I want to close out here, Dave, with is today, right? Today, I introduced and really, Bill Cates did a fantastic webinar on his referral process. And it was more of a training than a webinar. It was 90 minutes. We're going to edit it down a little bit, but, there's probably a good 50 minutes of the 90 that was like process, like exactly what to say, what to do, how to do it. So we're going to pare that down so you guys don't have to watch the other 40 minutes of like stories and success stories and sales pitches and book promotions and stuff like that. That's natural and part of all those things. So we are going to do that, but it was incredible, and we got incredible feedback. And it is a fantastic referral process, and it's different. Like, you think about, I was talking to John DelGreco over the weekend. His referral process is what to do to create a unique experience all throughout your financial planning, sales process, while everything, all the paperwork's getting processed, all that, to lead to the opportunity to ask for referrals, right? And it's very different than what Bill Cates is doing. Bill Cates there's still a little bit of overlap of building a referral culture, but mainly it's about a very proven method of how to go about having the conversations with your existing clients to ask for referrals. So they're complementary. And we're going to do a follow-up webinar with DelGreco to refresh everybody on his referral process, because it's very valuable, but it's very different from what Bill Cates is teaching. So I did want to touch on that. And then Dave, I wanted you to touch on the DFA communications webinar that I was able to catch the second hour, but not the first, because I had an overlap watching the JL Smith Group of FIA. Yeah.
So there's a guy who has been an incredible resource at DFA, Apollo Lupescu. He worked at the State Department for the government. He's just brilliant, master communicator. And he did a 2-hour training today on communication. And it was, there's very few trainings I walk away with like pages and pages and pages and pages and notes. I was just having flashbacks in my mind of being a better communicator. And so we'll have that up on the e-learning course for anyone who missed it. He was about to do a really impactful close and the webinar got ended. So we're going to have that special edition ending coming out soon for those of you who were on it. But just an incredible way to communicate to our clients and pay more attention to what's going on. The other thing I just wanted to share, Jason, is we sent out a couple things this week in closing. I met a lady who is a neuro-linguistic programming expert in San Francisco, and she works with financial advisors, helping them understand mindset. And, a wealthy mind is just important as a wealthy bank account. And she partnered with the founder of the California Institute of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And they are going to come on and do a training for all of us as advisors, but more than welcome to invite all of your staff to this training too, to teach how the brain is dealing with all of the stuff that's going on right now with the shelter in place, coronavirus, homeschooling, parenting while trying to work, And in addition, the confidence of the value that we bring as financial advisors to justify the fees that we charge and how we could make an impact on our clients' lives. And so the registration just went out. I highly encourage, I think it's going to be a great couple-hour course that we're paying for. She normally charges 10 grand a day for advisors to go through this. And so C2P is bringing this to you. We're mandating all of our team go through it just because I think it's going to help them personally as well as professionally. So I would recommend you do the same for your staff. We just launched a Bucket Plan podcast. Walter Young is a guru when it comes to life insurance. We just did one on whole life as an alternative in today's low interest rates. I used some of the stuff from Walter 2 nights ago and did a $20,000 10-pay life policy with an existing client. And so get on that podcast, listen to some of his one-liners. And then 2 other small things, huge things. Number 1, we're doing a virtual training of the Bucket Plan 1.0. So that is going to be May 14th and 15th. Jason and I are going to get together and we're going to do it all virtually to teach you all this great stuff to use in a virtual environment for the Bucket Plan 1.0. And then Jason, quickly talk about save the date for the mastermind. We got 3 minutes left, June 3rd. Tell us about what your vision is there.
I'm going to keep it for next week, Dave. I'm going to keep it for next week, but at least mark your, do a save the date, protected on your calendar. So is it June 3rd or 4th, Dave? For some reason I was thinking June 4th.
Oh, our team sent me June 3rd, but maybe they have it off. Here's what we'll do. Mark them both, and we'll send you a message in the next couple hours, unless somebody can text me really quickly.
I'm sure it's June 3rd then. I'm sure I'm the one that's off there. But,
all right. But hey, Jason, real quick, I want to do one thing as we wrap up here. So we do a lot of interactive polling in my webinars for prospects, and I've heard great feedback on it. It keeps engagement. So we're going to launch a poll here so you can see how it is. But we want to know how else we can help you. So think about your sales pipeline right now. And there's going to be a poll up on your screen. What does your pipeline look like on a scale of 0 to 5? Or actually, let's say 1 to 5.
0's not
1 to 5, yep.
Yeah.
So 1 is your pipeline is a 0, meaning you got nothing in it right now. It's completely dried up. You have no opportunities to move money, get new flows to your business. A 5 is like you're as busy as you've ever been with new prospects bringing money into your firm. We want to get a gauge of where everyone is at so that we can figure out more areas where we can help you individually as a group with, training and virtual meetings and marketing. So do me a favor, do this poll real quick. It'll take a minute and it'll be a great talking point for our next Whiskey Wednesday.
How do they do the poll, Dave? Like, what do they click, or what's the click poll, or?
Yep, they click polls on the GoToWebinar. And so we have a lot of people doing it right now. 38% are ranking it a 3. How about this? 13% are ranking it a 5. They're as busy as they've ever been. 19% are ranking it a 1. So we got the numbers coming in right now. It's great to see kind of where people are at so that we can figure out how we can continue to bring more value and help people out.
And webinar, Jeanette's one of the ones ranking it a 5. So that was.
Yep. And Jason, I'm getting a whole bunch of text messages right now. It is June 3rd for the Mastermind Collegium.
Yeah. So we'll talk about more detail next week. But mark your calendar for the Mastermind Collegium.
All right. Well, hey, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy. Keep your minds healthy, keep your businesses healthy, and let us know how we can help you.